Yo, what is up guys, it's Ghost here, welcome back to another video, and today this one is going to be our first ever details that we're getting about the new Battlefield game, Battlefield 6, because DICE have just dropped a massive blog post going over what they're going to be testing, I believe today, in the current test and in the near future. So for anyone who watched yesterday's video, you'll know that some of the changes I wanted to see from these first beginner tests was basically the foundation of the game, the gunplay, the sound of the game, the feel of the game, and that seems to be exactly what they've decided to tackle here. So this first blog post is going to be going in depth into the gunplay and movement. So without further ado, if you guys enjoy the content here on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like as well below if you enjoyed the video. You can also follow me on X or Twitter as soon as it happens. I'll usually update things there before I get the chance to actually make a video on them. So if that's something you're interested in, then feel free. So it seems that DICE have decided to be as transparent as possible with us here in a bid to get ahead of the leaks. As I said yesterday, I think they understand fully that there will be leaks from the Battlefield test. There's just no two ways about it. Having that many people testing your game is going to result in leaks, no matter how many NDAs you make them sign. And I think this is a stellar move by them. Instead of having the information leaked to us in parts that's leaving out a lot of stuff, DICE have just decided, you know what, we're going to drop a blog post and tell you guys exactly what we're testing, and hopefully they're going to do this for each and every test along the process. So let's just jump straight in here. They say, this is the first of our regular community updates to keep you informed about features we are testing in Battlefield Labs. Today we'll focus on elements of gunplay and movement. So this is their design philosophy for the gunplay and the movement. We've continually evolved our gunplay and movement mechanics throughout the Battlefield series. Now, within Battlefield Labs, we're focused on refining the best elements from past titles, modernizing them and validating if they feel fun and rewarding, and have the right balance between intuitive control and dynamic combat. We're designing the combat experience to ensure players of all skill levels can enjoy our gunplay and movement systems. Our goal is to offer gameplay that rewards skill with precise weapon feedback and movement options for veterans, while providing an intuitive experience for new players to learn and enjoy. So for anybody who is worried that they're going to dumb the game down too much for the more amateur crowd, let's call them, it seems they are trying to cater to everybody here. For gunplay, we are exploring designs centered on helping you learn and develop skills and muscle memory through action, as weapons naturally signal their recoil direction. This feedback loop allows you to understand and adjust your aim, making it easier to handle different weapons. This system not only adds variety, but also enhances each weapon's unique feel and play style. Movement is also deeply integrated with gunplay, as your actions and targets are all part of the same cohesive combat experience. We aim to make movement both feel intuitive and rewarding to move within the world and during combat, but also when playing against someone using both the gunplay and movement systems to their maximum potential. So basically, it sounds like they do want to have skill curves here, right, within the gameplay, so that veteran players have something to really dig their teeth into. They have something to chase there, and those players who are skilled at Battlefield games are going to be able to showcase that skill, but at the same time, they have to make sure that new players, which I'm sure DICE Neo are hoping to attract, coming into the game aren't gonna get shat on. So what is new and improved for the gunplay and the movement? So they continue here saying, initially we will test select but important areas that create the foundation required to create a fun and rewarding Battlefield combat experience. We're making focused efforts to create consistent and optimized millisecond to millisecond soldier combat, and we will share some key examples of changes that will be available during our initial play sessions. So first up here, they have reduced the time it takes for bullets to appear on your screen from when you press fire. This change decreases input delay, makes shooting feel more responsive, and helps you better track and hit moving targets. So we're optimizing for a 60 Hz tick rate, which is huge actually, ensuring the game server more frequently updates the positions and actions for all players. This results in responsive gameplay across all platforms and inputs, and you'll notice more precise shooting and movement, enhanced damage feedback, and more accurate representation of other players' positions and combat outcomes. Okay, so 60 Hz tick rate is absolutely massive, guys. Battlefield 2042's tick rate on PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S is 45, but it's only 20 on PS4 and Xbox One, so if you're somebody who's on last gen, you are going to feel a massive difference here. Now, for anybody who doesn't fully understand what tick rate is, and you may be somewhat unfamiliar with this if you've been out of the Battlefield loop for some time, it is basically the amount of times per second that the server updates all of the information. So if somebody fires a bullet at you, where that bullet is in space within the game will be updated in the new game 60 times every second, which should reduce the feeling of you dying when you feel you've run around a corner, but in actuality, due to slow server updates, the server thinks you've actually been hit by those bullets before you made it around that corner, which doesn't feel good for either player a lot of the time, you dying behind the corner, or somebody feeling like they shot you and you should have died, but you didn't die. I would recommend Battle Nonsense's channel for anybody who isn't already subscribed to him. I even hear he might be coming back and starting to make some new Battlefield videos, so now is a good time to go sub to that guy. But he's made a bunch of fantastic videos explaining this in far more depth than I ever could back in the Battlefield 4 era, so definitely recommend going and checking him out if you want to hear or learn more about that. So they continue here saying, we have adjusted the recoil system to make the different weapon types feel unique when firing them. Through enhancements to gunplay recoil, camera shakes, and firing settles, each shot's recoil direction now matches its gameplay angle. The weapon visually stabilizes the more accurate your handling is, making you feel like you're actually firing and controlling it. So this sounds a little bit scary, right? Because we know they've been experimenting with visual recoil in Battlefield 2042, and my hypothesis there was that the reason they were doing that is to maybe work on the next Battlefield game and put some of the results that they found there into the next game, and they were just testing things out on the community. This now appears to have actually been spot on. So the way I interpret what they've just said in this paragraph is that the better you control your weapon and the more you're able to reduce that recoil through your own skill and perhaps weapon attachments, the less visual recoil you will see from the weapon. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a controversial one. I mean, it makes sense, right? We can reduce the visual recoil, but visual recoil also adds a little bit to the immersivity of the game, and like they say here, they want you to actually feel like you are the one controlling the weapon. Now, moving on to movement here, they say to evolve the movement system, I think that's supposed to be, but there's a spelling error there, we have revamped animations and reintroduced movement features such as crouch sprint, combat dive, and landing roll, and added visual indicators to make it easier to understand when movements such as vaulting or leaning are possible. So that was a pretty loaded paragraph there. Let's just break this one down. So first of all, crouch sprinting, I think most of us noticed this in the trailer. We all assumed that to be in the game. Turns out it is. That was a feature that was in Battlefield 5, right? A lot of folks consider Battlefield 5's movement to be some of the best in the series, and I've seen a lot of people saying that's what they want from the new Battlefield game, so it seems that DICE are listening to that feedback. Now, combat dive, this to me sounds like dolphin diving, and that worries me a little bit because the last thing I think any of us want are people winning gunfights by drop-shotting you. So I think whether this is a good or bad feature is largely going to pivot on how it's implemented. Like, if you are punished for doing that combat dive by, you know, not being able to fire your weapon or even draw your weapon, and it's designed to get you behind cover as a defensive maneuver, I think that's a good thing. But if you're going to be able to use your weapon as normal and, you know, use it for drop shotting, that's definitely going to be a negative addition in my book, but I guess we'll see how that plays out. I think the landing roll sounds cool. I assume this is like if you jump down off an elevated position, your character's going to go into a roll animation. Again, just much more immersive and cool there. And then they've also hinted, or really, well, not hinted, but they've told us that vaulting and, of course, leaning is going to be coming back. So what kind of leaning are we going to get? For me, I hope it's going to be a contextual lean like we had in Battlefield 4, where you go up to a corner, you ADS, and you can automatically lean around that corner, which can, of course, be enabled or disabled in the options depending on what you prefer. But I hope it's not going to be like Delta Force's lean, where you press E or Q on the keyboard, or probably one of the bumper buttons on controller, and you just kind of lean, like, out in the middle of nowhere when you're not even looking or peering around a corner or a wall or a box. It just looks kind of stupid, so hopefully it's going to be contextual. So the next section here is called Feedback and Validation, and they say at this stage, content within Battlefield Labs is pre-alpha, and play sessions take place within a closed dev environment focused on testing small chunks of a larger array of features. Some gameplay features are placeholder, work in progress, and with bugs and performance not being representative of the final experience. So, disclaimer, by the way, if anybody leaks footage. However, even during this early stage of development, you'll get a good sense of our new design approach. During our first play sessions, our teams will be validating the systems and stability of Battlefield Labs, such as server performance, while participants will be able to familiarize themselves with what's next for Battlefield through testing the gunplay and movement experience, focused on the feel of the different weapon archetypes, improvements to aim and control, weapon balance and fun factor, look and feel of movement, moving and interacting within the map, and the combat pacing. So it seems like they're testing out exactly the kind of things I hope they will be testing out to begin with. As I've already said, most of the other game can be built around this, like maps can be changed, game modes can be changed, etc. Weapons can be changed, but if you don't get these fundamentals correct and the game simply does not feel fun or promising to play, then it's not going to be a banger. And then they say, lastly, a reminder that while our progression will be within a closed environment and we can't invite everyone to every session, we'll make sure to keep you informed on ongoing Battlefield Labs play sessions and learnings through these regular community updates. Sign up for Battlefield Labs now if you're interested in helping us validate the future of Battlefield, and read our FAQ if you'd like to learn more. We'll be back in the coming weeks to talk more about our learnings from our first play sessions, as well as another feature-focused community update. So this is pretty cool, man. I'm really liking this out of DICE. Of course, we all know that the reason, well, one of the large reasons that Battlefield 2042 failed is because there was absolutely no transparency or willingness to work with the community. I mean, even when the game released and it was clear that it was a terrible, terrible, catastrophic failure of a release, they still almost didn't want to admit defeat. They didn't want to admit their mistake and listen and work with the community. Eventually, they did start to come around, but it's just such a breath of fresh air to see that it looks like with this next game, they have seen the light. They know now that this is the way forward, and this is how we're going to end up with a good, solid Battlefield game. So if you didn't see yesterday's video, the playtest, I believe, is taking place today from 4 PM until 6 PM. That's the word on the street, at least, from people who have gotten invited to the playtest. Who knows, maybe we'll see some leaks over the weekend. I very much doubt we'll actually see video footage. I've also heard it may be an in-person playtest where you actually go to the studio. It may not necessarily be like an online one, so that means if that is the case, it's probably even less likely that things will be leaked. But if they are, and it's anything interesting, I will be sure to make another video and cover that for you guys. But otherwise, let me know what you think about this down below. Do you like what you hear here? You know, all of these movement mechanics, the gunplay stuff here, the recoil, the higher tick rate. I guess the higher tick rate is kind of a no-brainer. You can't be upset about that. But what about the rest of the stuff? I know a lot of people want the movement of the game to go back to older Battlefield titles, and really just older times where movement wasn't as fast and snappy, but I think there does need to be a balance there. I mean, if we go back way too far, I was kind of joking about this on Twitter earlier with like Enders. Obviously, he's a very highly skilled player, and he's able to make use of those movement mechanics to maximum efficacy. But if we dumb things down far too much, we're going to be back in like Bad Company 2, where we didn't even have strafing. I mean, can you imagine playing a shooter without strafing? Probably not, right? But that's the way shooters actually used to be, and even Battlefield games. So again, I do think there is a line that needs to be drawn there somewhere, but at the same time, I don't want it to be too snappy, slidey, jumping around corners all over the place, kind of like the way Battlefield 2042 is at the moment. It is just like a little bit cheesy, and whilst I've always been a gameplay over realism advocate for Battlefield games, I feel like this is just, I don't know, just a little bit too silly in my book, so hopefully they're going to find a nice middle ground to balance it there. Either way, leave me your thoughts down below, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.